च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We have been studying teachings of Sri Ramakrishna taken from the Gospel. Today's topic I want to deal with law and grace. We see all over the world how lot of violence, crime, hatred, jealousy, arrogance going in full swing, as it were. So they are leading to chain action. Lots of people are being killed, being tortured, being kidnapped, and things are going in a very nasty way. Well, people may wonder what God can do in this situation. Is He keeping quiet, seeing this wholesale crime being perpetuated all over the world? But we must know there is cosmic law operating. It doesn't spare anybody, and the law is set in such a way it will have its effect. Those who are perpetuating hatred, jealousy, they won't go unpunished. So everybody has to undergo the reaction. In fact, we have seen in Sri Krishna's life itself how the Yadava race became very arrogant because of the power and wealth. Lord Krishna saw these people would be doomed because of the arrogance, and it happened. In front of Lord Krishna, the whole Yadava race was wiped out. So, same thing would happen now. And all these things, jealousy, hatred, etc., are becoming malignant tumor in the body of religion. People are not practicing religion in a proper way, not understanding religion in a proper way. So people at the ordinary level are suffering because of these things. Sri Ramakrishna tells in the Gospel, sin begets its own result. Sin begets its own result. This is God's law. These are the words of Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel. He said, won't you burn your tongue if you chew a chili? In his youth, Mathur Babu, who later on was taking all care about Sri Ramakrishna's needs, he was attending on him very devotedly. But in his younger days, Mathur led a rather fast life. So the reaction is he suffered from various diseases before his death. That is cause and effect. When you put your hand in the fire, it burns. You can't say, oh, you may repent. Yeah, I should not have put my hand. Very good. Does it remove the suffering of the pain? No. But how to understand? You have to tolerate. You have to bear with. You must know that you have done it. So bear with it. Don't put blame upon anybody else. Me only to blame for anything that happens, good or bad. Swamiji says in his poem, in Complete Works. One may not realize this in youth. Sri Ramakrishna says, I have looked into the hearth in the kitchen of the Kali temple when logs are being burnt. At first, the wet wood burns rather well. It doesn't seem then that it contains much moisture. But when the wood is sufficiently burnt, all the moisture runs back to one end. At last, water squirts from the fuel and puts out the fire. Then one of the persons asked Sri Ramakrishna, why has God created wicked people? These questions, even if we answer, they keep on coming. You must know that. Yeah. But it's a very, very good question, really. And Sri Ramakrishna's reply, that is his will. That is God's play. In God's Maya, you must know there exists avidya as well as vidya. Ignorance as well as knowledge. Darkness is needed too. It reveals all the more the glory of light. There is no doubt that anger, lust and greed are evils. Why then has God created them? And Sri Ramakrishna puts this question and answers. He himself answers it. He says, in order to create saints. A man becomes a saint by conquering the senses. Is there anything impossible for a man who has subdued his passions? He can even realize God through his grace. Again, see how his whole play of creation is perpetuated through lust. Wicked people, again Sri Ramakrishna tells, I am just quoting from the Gospel in order to dwell upon the subject in depth, law and grace. Sri Ramakrishna says, wicked people are needed too. At one time, the tenants of an estate became unruly, the landlord had to send Golak Chaudhary, who was a ruffian. He was such a harsh administrator that the tenants trembled at the very mention of his name. Then in another context, one person by name Nanda, he asked a question, Master, can God violate law? Sri Ramakrishna answered, what do you mean? He is the Lord of all. He can do everything. He who has made the law can also change it. And Nanda puts another question, is God partial? This also people keep on asking, is God partial? If things happen through God's grace, then I must say God is partial. That's what Nanda says. Master answered him, but God himself has become everything, the universe and its living beings. You will realize it when you have perfect knowledge. God himself has become the 24 cosmic principles, the mind, the intellect, body and so forth. Is there anyone but himself to whom he can show partiality? Then Nanda asks again, why has he assumed all these different forms? Why are some wise and some ignorant? Sri Ramakrishna answers, it is his sweet will. So, this universe of countless varieties and ceaseless changes is a complete system, a coherent whole in which all the parts are harmoniously riveted. It is a cosmos. The cosmic processes go on because they are all controlled by the fundamental principles and by universal rules. Universal laws not backed by consciousness can serve only as blind forces. Laws themselves cannot maintain order. These laws are ordained by one supreme being who is absolute consciousness. He is the sole ruler of the universe. He is omnipotent, omniscient in the midst of all varieties. He is a unit of existence. In the midst of all changes, he is the indisputable Lord of all. He is ever the witness of all the cosmic processes. He never gets involved. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, man must reap the fruit of his own karma. So this doctrine of karma is very important tenet in Hinduism. And even Christians who are not believing before, now they are taking it up, this doctrine of karma. They are believing it now. Of all the laws that control the universe, a very remarkable one is the law of causality, which has been recognized by all the philosophers of the world. A chain of cause and effect relationships covers the entire universe. Nothing comes out of nothing, and nothing comes into being without a cause. As the cause is, so is the effect. The effect on its part proves to be a cause. In this way, there is a chain of cause and effect relationships controlling the whole universe. This universal law of cause and effect functions in human life as the law of karma. As you sow, so you reap. There is difference between the law of cause functioning in the non-human nature and the law of cause functioning in human nature. On the human plane, this law of causality has become a moral law. What does karma mean? Karma means the result of action distinct from instinctive action which is involuntary. Man alone of all the living creatures known to us is capable of volitional action. Because man has the privilege of this volitional action, he has to pay for his actions very heavily. Volitional action is always attended with consciousness. Where there is no consciousness, there is no law of karma. Because man has distinct self-awareness, whatever is done volitionally, intentionally, leaves an impression on the mind. This is the effect of karma. So, the embodied being, after living the life for some years, he cast off the body. We say he is dead. But really speaking, he is not dead. Why? Because his mind goes with him. The subtle body always goes with him. The subtle body is a recording machine which records all your actions, good or bad, whatever you have done through your senses, whatever you have heard, whatever you have seen, whatever you have uttered, whatever you have thought, all these have gone into the recording machine of the mind and they create impressions. So liberation means disconnecting yourself from the mind, realizing your true self, the source of all bliss and knowledge. But then you can't simply realize the truth because you wanted it unless you purify your mind, unless you remove all the impressions, propensities obstructing your way towards reality. Unless they are all removed, you can't have realization of the truth. After all, what is tapas? Tapas means purifying your mind by every means. Now, as far as you can see it, the karma seems to be lost. Its effect does not seem to last very long, but in reality, a permanent effect is created on the human mind. Suppose a man commits a murder and he escapes. He thought there is no effect of karma. He has somehow escaped from the reaction. No. Whatever he has done, that go in subtle way and settles down in his mind to react on him some other time, not necessarily immediately. Sometimes it acts immediately also. Sometimes it acts after a long time. For example, if you take Dasharatha's life, the great Ramayana, very great king, even gods used to praise Dasharath. He would go in his mortal frame to heaven, and because he was so meritorious, Lord Vishnu himself incarnated as Sri Ramchandra. He became the son of Dasharath. Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrugna, all these four, they were born to Dasharath. Because he had such merit, so God descended in his family. Such a noble character who was revered by all the people. Even gods would revere him. Such a person had to suffer unbearable suffering. When Dashrath was forced to send Sri Ramchandra to the forest for 14 years, because Kaikeyi, one of the queens of Dashrath, demanded that Ram should be exiled and Bharat should be enthroned as the crown prince. And the suffering was so high, unbearable. He could not breathe. He passed away. But just before passing away, immediately got remembrance of what he had done when he was a teenager. See, the teenagers they do all sorts of dirty things, mischievous things, thinking the whole world should dance according to them. Foolishly they do, and foolishly they reap the result afterwards. Anyway, it is a responsibility of the elders to teach the teenagers properly. In the name of freedom, the teenagers are let loose without any direction. So you feel the bad effect, how it is spreading throughout the world. Well, when he was a teenager, of course he was young and robust. He had learnt all the archery, and one special knowledge he had was, if he hears a sound, he can shoot an arrow in the direction of the sound from where the sound came. So in order to test whether he had mastered that knowledge, one night he went out for hunting. It was dark, it was raining. In spite of it, because he had so much of vigor, it just for fun, he went out for hunting, and he was waiting to hear some sound of the animal so that he can shoot from a distance, and he could target that animal properly. Well, he waited for some time behind the trees. Finally he heard a sound. The sound was such, he thought probably some elephant or some wild animal has come to drink the water. So hearing that sound, he discharged the missile. It hit, no doubt, it just hit the heart of the person who was taking water in a pitcher from the river. The pitcher, when it was being filled with water, it was making sound, gla 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 gla, like that. He thought the animal was drinking. But then he shouted, "Who is that man who killed me?" etc. Immediately he heard the human voice and he ran there. Then he apologized, he regretted. But what is done by repentance, by regretting, you can't avoid the effect of that. He said, "No, go in a short distance, my blind parents are there, I am the only person who was taking care of them. They wanted water, they were thirsty, so I came to fetch the water, but you have killed me. Go and tell the truth. If you don't tell the truth right now, your head will be splitted into 1,000 parts. Go and tell the truth. Then you will be saved for some time." He went, and the blind parents, they thought the son was coming. "Oh son, why are you coming so late?" And Dashrath was very sad. He disclosed, "Well, is the thing what happened? Inadvertently I did this." And the mother could not tolerate. She dropped down dead. And the father said, "What is sin we have committed? Do you know how much we are suffering? Our whole life was depending on our son. Both of us are blind. Who is there to take care of us now? We lost our son. I don't think I will live anymore. I can't bear this separation. But you must know, you will also have to undergo the same suffering. You will see how the suffering would be. That time will come when you also will not bear that separation, and you will also meet with death as we are meeting now." All these things he remembered when he was about to pass away. He told this story to Kausalya. Kausalya, when I was young, I did this mistake, so I am having this effect. He may be the father of the incarnation of God. What of that? But true. But then, does not have any meaning? It has meaning. Because he was the father of the incarnation of God. All the time he was repeating Rama, Rama, Rama. And finally passed away. So, karma is like that. And of course he exhausted all the suffering, all the pain by suffering that way. And that was the climax. He has to leave the body, he has to die. And all the queens became widows. They all become widows. Anyway, the story of Raman you know very well. So, in reality, a permanent effect is created on the human mind. Anything you do with self-consciousness and volitionally leaves an impression upon the mind. And these impressions are constantly getting stored up in you. Because of these impressions, you create your own disposition, your faculty or power. These impressions become the source of your memory. If your action did not leave impressions on the mind, then you would not be able to develop your powers. Power of music, power of literary writing, and so on. When you experience something, the impression is left behind. So you can remember it. These impressions create your disposition. They also dwell in you as a retributive forces, as moral forces. If you have done something right and commendable from the moral and spiritual point of view, it creates a good impression in you and you acquire merit, as it were. These merits will invariably fructify in this life or in a future existence. In this way, our life is being controlled by our actions. One needs to know all these things. Ignorance is no excuse. You need to know. When you are driving a car, you need to know the traffic rules. You can't simply tell the cop, I didn't know the traffic rules. No. It is just like that. So that is why we always say, when the people, when they are young, when they are children, give them good ideas. Give them spiritual ideas to them. When they grow up, they will be wonderful. So formation is very important, formative life. How you formate in your younger days, later on you will enjoy it. But I don't think people are giving much attention to their formative period at all. There are visible effects and also invisible effects, which in the form of impressions are carried within us beyond death. We don't leave this body just like an empty vessel, but the soul associated with the mind, along with all its weaknesses and excellences, goes out. Just as in this present life, your own tendencies and desires determine your way of living, similarly, after death, your impressions and desires will determine the course of future life. There is no other force guiding your life. You yourself, your own actions and the impressions produced and accumulated out of these actions determine your course of life now and in future. These are the sole companions in our solitary journey after death. They push you to do certain things. The impressions, they push you. You can't simply avoid them at all. These impressions will be responsible for our future. This present life is due to our past existence. In our past existence we did certain deeds and we acquired within us merits and demerits which determined our present life. Just as the law of causality in the universe is ordained by God, so also this law of karma is ordained by God. We do not always see that a man reaps all that he sows here. That means your life does not end here with death. After death, the seeds of karma will follow you and produce their results. God cannot be mocked or deceived. So, this law of karma is to be seen from the moral viewpoint. What good deeds you do will lead you to a favorable condition of life. As a result, you will be happy. Whatever wrong deeds you do will lead you to unfavorable situations here and hereafter, as a result of which you will be unhappy. Sri Ramakrishna said in the Gospel, it is God alone who has planted in man's mind what the Englishman calls free will. People who have not realized God would become engaged in more and more sinful actions if God had not planted in them the notion of free will. Sin would have increased if God had not made the sinner feel that he alone was responsible for his sin. Those who have realized God are aware that free will is a mere appearance. In reality, man is the machine and God its operator. Man is the carriage and God is driver. This law of karma also works within us. We can give up misdeeds and we can perform right, good deeds. That is, we can create for ourselves favorable situations in life here and hereafter. Though human life is controlled by law, man has freedom. Every individual in this world has freedom. Law functions in a general way and also in a special way. All human beings are controlled by certain universal laws. But within these universal laws, human beings have a certain freedom. There are laws for the universal and there are laws for the particular. The laws for the particular are subordinate to the universal laws while retaining some autonomy. Just as under a federal government, all the states function, and though they cannot disregard the laws of the central government, yet they have some autonomy. Similarly, in this world, all material things are controlled by universal laws. Yet every variety of matter has its own law. Fire is controlled by the same general principle that controls all matter. Water is also controlled by the same general principle that controls all matter. Yet fire has its own way of functioning and water also has its own way of functioning. Similarly, all living creatures are controlled by universal laws as well as specific ones. Human beings have their own way of functioning and the lower creatures have their own way of functioning. A man has some freedom and is capable of volitional work, but he has to pay the penalty for the results of his work. Man can give up wrong deeds if he tries and can turn to right deeds. He has that capacity. When he turns to right deeds, he naturally derives benefit out of right deeds. He becomes more happy and enjoys more favorable situations in life. But still, he is within the relative order. In this realm of birth and growth, decay and death, we can't go beyond this relativity through karma, because karma itself functions within this realm of relativity. You can have a beautiful face, you can have a nice home, you can have wealth and good friends, yet Your internal aspiration after complete freedom cannot be satisfied. Again, Master said, Sri Ramakrishna said in the Gospel, bondage and liberation are both of our making. That is, Divine Mother's making. By Divine Mother's Maya, worldly people become entangled in lust and gold. And again, through her grace, they attain their liberation. She is called the Savior and the remover of the bondage that binds one to the world. Every situation, however favorable you may consider it from the human viewpoint, is a bondage. It is a world of dependence. Just through duty, you can't have unmixed blessings. Just through wealth, you can't have unmixed blessings. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we find that when Yajnavalkya was about to retire from worldly life in order to lead the life of contemplation and meditation, he wanted to give all his wealth to his wives. He had two wives, Gargi and Maitreyi. One of them, Maitreyi, she asked a question, will this wealth make me immortal? Yajnavalkya was a man of realization. He replied, wealth cannot make you immortal. It will make you as happy as the wealthy persons are in this world. But there is no chance of becoming immortal through wealth or by good deeds. You can have all that the world can give, the kind of peace, the kind of pleasure, the kind of greatness and glory that this world can give, but that cannot satisfy your innermost longing for perfection and absolute peace. When a person is awakened to this situation, the inherent limitations of this elegiac system, he can't wait any further. He has given up misdeeds and has turned to right deeds, and is still not getting the fulfillment of his deepest longing for perfection, absolute freedom and unmixed bliss. What's the way out? There is only one in this world who is perfect. There is only one in this world who is absolute, free and good in the absolute sense, and that one is the Supreme Being. In this relative order, there is no such word as absolute peace or freedom or blessings till the aspirant turns to God. Instead of getting the most out of this world, he thinks that he must get out of this world, not by ignoring it, but by rightly using the present situation. If you want to go beyond water, you have to swim through water and go to the shore. So you have to go to God beyond this world, and in order to reach God, you have to go through this world. Again, Sri Ramakrishna tells very beautiful ideas Sri Ramakrishna has given in the Gospel. He said, two things are necessary for the realization of God. One is faith, another is self-surrender. Man is ignorant by nature. Errors are natural to him. Can one share part hold 4 shares of milk? Whatever path you may follow, you must pray to God with a restless heart. He is the ruler of the soul within. He will surely listen to your prayers if it is sincere. Whether you follow the ideal of the personal God or that of impersonal truth, you will realize God alone, provided you are restless for Him. A cake with icing tastes sweet whether you eat it straight or sidewise. The great teachers say that there is something in you which binds you. What is that? It is the ego, the I. It says, I can unmake and make things. I can unmake and make this world. This ego is associated with your karma, and because of this ego, you claim the karma to be your own, and hence must taste the fruits of your work. This ego consciousness ties you down. You can give up your ego. It is simply apparent. You belong just like everything else to God. And by surrendering yourself, you arrive at the goal. There is no other master in this world than God. A few children, a home, a position, this is all we are interested with. And we think that we are the Lord of everything. Anytime when it pleases the Lord, He will take us away. So this should be remembered. Do not claim anything to be your own. Just think that you are the caretaker of what you are interested with. In the spirit of work, karma cannot bind. Karma creates impressions which fructify. That is, they react on you because you want them to. The moment you forego the result, the ego as a caretaker shall try to please the Lord. It is up to him what he will do to you. The best sermon is to retire, to satisfy the master. In this spirit of self-surrender, work in this world. Then whatever you do will not create new impressions, but eliminate the impressions that you have already gathered. If you continue to work in the world in this spirit, gradually your mind will be purified and you will perceive the spiritual light. Then the grace of God will dawn upon you. Apparently, divine law and grace are incompatible. Law is administered through great justice. God is the judge, impartial to all. He is the highest ruler of the universe and the guardian of law. He is also the destroyer. You gain mercy only when you surrender. Mercy cannot stand defiance. Mercy is too tender to face defiance. If you defy, law is for you. But if you surrender, mercy will dawn upon you. When a person convicted of some crime tries to defend himself by hook or crook, law takes care of him and he is condemned. But then he surrenders and implores the mercy of the highest authority, then mercy takes care of him. Even in this world, these two things are contradictory, law and mercy. Both function under the same government. So, do they function under the divine government? So do they function under the divine government also, and have two different dimensions. As long as defiance to God is there in your life, law will take care of you. But when you give up this divine spirit and surrender to God and recognize Him as the supreme authority, then naturally God's grace would descend on you. God's grace is ever ready. It is ever ready to dawn upon you. But there is defiance. It finds no access within you. Someone is struggling to enter your room, but you keep all the windows shut, no air, no sunlight can come into your room. Similarly, within you there is a way by which mercy wants to function. God's grace is ever there. The breeze is blowing. If you want to take advantage of it, you have to unfurl your sail. Sri Ramakrishna says that. But if you do not take the trouble of unfurling the sail, you can't take advantage of the breeze, however favorable it may be. In life also, the breeze of God's grace is always blowing, but you don't take advantage of that. If you don't pray to Him for mercy, do not surrender yourself to Him, how can you get His grace? Thus, there is no partiality on the part of God to bestow mercy on one person and administer justice on another person. The domain of law and the domain of mercy are different. Law is for the bound. If one wants to go beyond bondage to the realm of freedom, one has to seek divine grace by self-surrender. Then only can a person work in this world with detachment. Self-surrender also requires a great deal of effort. Unless one's mind is purified to a certain extent, one can't maintain the attitude of self-surrender. Those who do good deeds get their minds purified to a great extent and then develop this sense as also the longing for complete freedom. The spirit of surrender can't develop without a certain measure of inner growth. If a person maintains an attitude of self-surrender and at the same time worships God and prays to Him, then he becomes more capable of receiving God's grace. So you have to connect yourself in some way or other to the Divine Supreme. Then you will see through experience how God is bestowing grace upon you, and you will be overwhelmed. God's grace should not be counted only in terms of material well-being, which is after all very transitory. God's grace has to be counted in terms of devotion to God, divine light, divine peace, divine joy, divine love that develop within the heart. These are the eternal treasures. Nobody can rob one of these. These can never rust. These are the treasures that remain with you always. Time can't deprive you of them. Death can't deprive you of them. Burglars can't rob you of them. These treasures come through the grace of God. This grace of God usually comes through the grace of persons who are the spiritual leaders of the world and have already received the grace. People acquire spiritual treasures usually through the grace of these devotees of the Lord. Very few get God's grace directly. It is not that the votaries of God don't get God's grace directly. They do. But in this world, generally speaking, God's grace comes through the channels of those persons who have already gained God's grace. Righteous people got God's grace through her. The point is this: we may judge a person by his or her weaknesses, but along with the weaknesses, many excellences are also hidden in human nature. This human nature is very complex. The great spiritual teachers had the insight to see if there is any real gold mixed with dross. We judge a person only by his or her apparent excellences and weaknesses, but the Lord judges a person according to his deep-seated tendencies. So, Ambapali was a fallen woman only in appearance, but Buddha found a little golden devotion in her. Just an ounce of gold will outweigh tons of rusty iron. You may acquire many things in this world, external and internal, yet if your life is devoid of any spiritual treasure, it doesn't mean much. With all her weaknesses, she felt that inside her there was gold, and Buddha found it. So also in the life of Lord Christ, Mary Magdalene received Lord's grace. How is it possible? Spiritual leaders have the insight to see an individual's real worth. So Mary Magdalene was saved. There are so many rich persons who are very virtuous, but spiritual treasures are to be judged in a different way. A small-minded person judges others by weaknesses, and a large-minded person judges others by excellences. In Sri Ramakrishna's life again, there was Girish Chandra Ghosh, a great actor and also a playwright. He was a manager of a theatre. He did not even believe in religion. Apparently, he was a great sinner. This person was completely transformed through Sri Ramakrishna's grace. These are illustrations of God's grace being received by persons who, from the usual standpoint, don't deserve his grace, we may say. Sri Krishna comments on this in the Bhagavad Gita. A person may be very wicked. Very wicked doesn't mean that there is no good in him. Yet, if he turns to me and worships me and seeks my grace, his life is transformed in no time. He becomes a holy man, a pious man. He has rightly resolved, know for certain, a person devoted to me, devoted to the Lord, can never perish. Sri Krishna, in many other places too, has referred to this bestowal of mercy on the seeker. Sri Krishna says that a person who surrenders himself easily crosses the ocean of mortality. He who accepts God as his sole ideal, surrenders his deeds to him and performs his deeds with faithfulness, is rescued from this world of dualities where birth and death, youth and old age, pain and pleasure, rise and fall, go on eternally. If persons whose character is apparently questionable can receive God's grace, then what to speak of those who devotedly worship him? God's grace is always upon those whose sole delight lies in hearing about him, talking about him, meditating on him and thinking of him. Dwelling in their hearts, he lights the lamp of knowledge by which they see him through that intuitive vision which seers develop. That intuitive vision is opened up through his grace. He removes all their inner darkness. These persons realize their unity with him. Sri Krishna also says that even a person who does not understand too much, does not discriminate much between right and wrong, if he seeks grace and surrenders himself, God rescues him. God saves even those who do not have the sharp intellect to discriminate, if they take refuge in him. Both divine law and divine grace are functioning in this human life. The two are not incompatible. As long as you want God to take care of you, why not tender yourself to God's divine grace? You will obtain spiritual treasures and will be saved from the ocean of mortality. So, the point is, you must somehow or other develop love and devotion, have a spiritual format, and strictly follow the spiritual ideal. Then in this very life you feel immensely peaceful and blessed. Page 776. Master said, there exist in God both Vidya and Avidya. Vidyamaya leads one to God and Avidyamaya away from him. Knowledge, devotion, compassion, and renunciation belong to the realm of Vidya. With the help of these, a man comes near God. One step more and he attains God, knowledge of Brahman. In that state he clearly feels and sees that it is God who has become everything. He has nothing to give up and nothing to accept. It is impossible for him to be angry with anyone. One day, I was riding in a carriage, Sri Ramakrishna is telling, I saw two prostitutes standing on a veranda. They appeared to me to be embodiments of the Divine Mother herself. I saluted them. When I first attained this exalted state, I could not worship Mother Kali or give her the food offering. Haladari and Hriday told me that on account of this, temple officer had slandered me. But I only laughed. I was not in the least angry. Attain Brahmajnana and then roam about enjoying God's Leela. A holy man came to a town and went about seeing the sights. He met another sadhu, an acquaintance. The latter said, I see you are gadding about. Where is your baggage? I hope no thief has stolen it. The first sadhu said, not at all. First I found a lodging, put my things in the room in the proper order, and locked the door. Now I am enjoying the fun of the city. Allah. Bhavana said, these are very lofty words. Yam said to himself, tasting God's Leela after Brahmajnana, climbing down to the ordinary plane of consciousness after the attainment of Samadhi. Master said to Yam and the others, is it an easy thing to obtain the knowledge of Brahman? It is not possible unless the mind is annihilated. The Guru said to his disciple, give me your mind and I shall give you knowledge. In this state one enjoys only spiritual talk and the company of the devotees. To Ram, Sri Ramakrishna said, you are a physician. You know that medicine works only when it mixes with patient's blood and becomes one with it. Likewise, in the state of Brahmajnana, one sees God both within and without. One sees that it is God himself who has become the body, mind, life and soul. Master said to himself, assimilation. Master Mahashya said to himself, assimilation. Sri Ramakrishna said, a man attains Brahmajnana as soon as his mind is annihilated. When the annihilation of the mind dies, the ego, which says I, one also attains the knowledge of Brahman by following the path of devotion. One also attains it by following the path of knowledge, that is to say, discrimination. The Gyanis discriminate saying neti, neti, not this, not this. All this is illusory, like a dream. They analyze the world through the process of not this, not this. It is Maya. When the world vanishes, only the jivas, that is to say, so many egos remain. Each ego may be likened to a pot. Suppose there are 10 pots filled with water and the sun is reflected in them. How many suns do you see? Devotee answered, 10 reflections. Besides, there certainly exists the real sun. Master said, suppose you break one pot, how many suns do you see now? Devotee answered, 9 reflected suns, but there certainly exists the real sun. Master said, all right, suppose you break 9 parts, how many suns do you see now? Devotee answered, 1 reflected sun, but there certainly exists the real sun. Master said to Girish, what remains when the last part is broken? Girish answered, that real sun, sir. Master, no. What remains cannot be described. What is remains? How will you know there is a real sun unless there is a reflected sun? Eye consciousness is destroyed in samadhi. A man climbing down from samadhi to the lower plane cannot describe what he has seen there. It was late in the evening, lamps were burning in the drawing room. Sri Ramakrishna was in a spiritual mood. The devotees sat around him. Master, in an ecstatic mood, said, there is no one else here, so I am telling you this. He who from the depth of his soul seeks to know God will certainly realize Him. He must. He alone who is restless for God and seeks nothing but Him will certainly realize Him. Those who belong to this place, the inner circle of Sri Ramakrishna's devotees, have already come. Those who will come from now on are outsiders. Such people will come now and then. The Divine Mother will tell them, do this, call on God in this way. Why doesn't man's mind dwell on God? You see, more powerful than God is his Mahamaya, his power of illusion. More powerful than the judge is his orderly. Allah. Rama said to Narad, I am very much pleased with your prayer. Ask a boon of me. Narada replied, O Rama, may I have a pure devotion to your lotus feet, and may I not be deluded by your world-bewitching Maya. Rama said, be it so. Ask for something else. Narada replied, no, Rama, I don't want any other boon. Everyone is under the spell of this world-bewitching Maya. When God assumes a human body, he too comes under this spell. Rama wandered about weeping for Sita. Brahman weeps entangled in the snare of the 5 elements. But you must remember this, God by his mere will can liberate himself from this snare. Bhavanath said, the god of the railway train shuts himself of his own will in a carriage, but he can get out whenever he wants to. Master said, the Ishvara Kotis, divine incarnations for instance, can liberate themselves whenever they want to, but the Jiva Kotis cannot. Jivas are imprisoned by lust and gold. When the doors and windows of a room are fastened with screws, how can a man get out? Bhavanath smilingly said, ordinary men are like the third-class passengers on a railway train. When the doors of the compartments are locked, they have no way to get out. Girish said, if a man is strongly tied hand and foot, then what is his way? Master said, he has nothing to fear if God himself as the Guru cuts the chain of Maya. We shall stop here. The chapter is concluded. Next Tuesday we shall start the chapter 41 at Ram's house. We shall have discussion the next class. Time is already over. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quench that mighty forest fire, worldly lust raging furiously within. Own name streamed down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. O self, drowned deep in the waves of his bliss, tasting his nectar at every step, bathing in his name that bath for weary souls. Various are thy names, O Lord. In each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy, how huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass. Be patient and forbearing like a tree. Take no honor to thyself, give honor to all. Chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. O Lord and soul of the universe, mine is no prayer for wealth or retinue, the playthings of lust or the ties of fame. As many times as I may be reborn, grant me, O Lord, a steadfast love for thee. A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy, consider him as dust beneath thy feet. Ah, how I long for the day when an instant's separation from thee, O Lord, will be as 1,000 years, when my heart burns away with its desire, and the world without thee is a heartless void. Prostrate at thy feet let me be, in unwavering devotion, neither imploring the embrace of thine arms, nor bewailing the withdrawal of thy presence, though it tears my soul asunder. O thou who steerest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. May all be free from dangers, may all realize what is good, may all be actuated by noble thoughts, may all rejoice everywhere, may all be happy, may all be free from disease, may all realize what is good, may none be subject to misery. May the wicked become virtuous, may the virtuous attain tranquility, may the tranquil be free from bonds, may the freed make others free. May good betide all people, may the sovereign righteously rule the earth, may all beings ever attain what is good, may the worlds be prosperous and happy. May the clouds pour rain in time, may the earth be blessed with crops, may all countries be freed from calamity, may holy men live without fear. May the Lord, the destroyer of sins, the presiding deity of all sacred works, be satisfied, for he being pleased, the whole universe becomes pleased. He being satisfied, the whole universe being satisfied.